Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. I am so honored and grateful that you are tuning in, but I have to ask for your help. I'm going to pull an NPR. If you'd like to help the show, you can donate to the show at emmettmuckles.com/donate, or just visit emmettmuckles.com. Follow the link in the menu to the donate page where you can make a donation of your choice. Thank you.
Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host and the guy whose microphone is a little crooked, Emmett Muckles. Today is the day that God gave you another chance. However, the universe you identify as the higher being, they gave you another chance. In this day, you should rejoice and be glad because you are a billionaire. You want to know how? Two cells got together and started a dance, and 30 days after that, you were a billion cells and you hadn't even put your feet on the ground. So rejoice in that moment that you are a unique and special billionaire. Today, we're going to get back to this situation that we are all going to and how to address it, which means it's a new paradigm. And in new paradigms, you have to adapt. And we're going to talk with Ruble Chandy about how to move forward and be prosperous in this new time. What's going on, Ruble?
What's going on, Emmett? Thanks for having me.
All right, man. So I know where your lineage comes from. And you come from some of the hustlingest people on the planet. And I know some of that is in your DNA. And I'm looking on your shelf and I see 90 Days to Life. You've written books, global entrepreneur, international bestseller, consulting with business and entrepreneurs in over 14 countries. You know, most people just focus in on America and North America, but you're just like branching out everywhere. So I'm going to ask you the one question that I ask all my guests to start off, which is, how did you get to now?
That's a great question. Thanks for that. I was 19 years old. We had $30,000 debt in India. I was born in India and didn't know what to do. About finishing up my college, and I was going to get a job for $90 a month. And then we were paying loan sharks at the time around $500 because of some of the transactions that my family made.
Yeah.
And then we almost lost our house. So I thought the only way I could make that kind of money is by doing business. So I thought, you know what, this thing called business, I see very many people succeed in this. So I wanted to start a business just for paying off my loan sharks. 5 years fast forward, age of 24, I have $60,000 debt. So I doubled my debt in 5 years, lost 2 businesses, and then not knowing what to do. How do I move forward? But like you said, I'm one of the people who's not going to give up on life or anything. There were days that I was crying for the whole night. But I said, you know what? I'm going to learn this thing out. I'm going to figure this out. So I studied business, learned business, read everything that I could read about business. And by the age of 37, I built 3 7-figure businesses and exited them. And then doing this full time, helping businesses to scale.
I need to ask you this question because I think it puzzles a lot of people. People say, I want to go into business for myself. How do you choose what you do?
Most people are trying to look for passion. Like, hey, what am I passionate about? And then 90 years later, they're like, I don't know. I didn't figure it out. Versus you like something, you like doing something, and then see what are you doing, and then decide what you're passionate based on what you're doing. It's backwards. Don't wait around to find your passion. See what you're doing. Like, you want to do 17 things. What are you doing? And if you're doing a certain thing, then that's what you're passionate about. Test that, work on it, get into it, and learn it. Fail fast, fail forward, fail intelligently, and then learn, keep learning until you get this game.
I was, there's a motto that I go by that I've learned in my decades of being alive on this planet, which is A, be an opportunist. B, say yes. And C, serve others. Like, those three things have led me to opportunities and things that I cannot tell you that was just like profound to me. Like, I experienced that because I've wrapped up those three principles. A lot of people, I think, you give me your opinion, they're going into business for a selfish point of view versus a serving point of view.
So both. It can start with selfishness. There's no problem. I started my business because I needed to pay off loan sharks.
That makes sense.
Not the best idea to start the business, but I failed. Why? Because my focus was completely on like debt and avoid debt. The focus was on the negative. So it's okay to get into business because you're selfish. Capitalism, the current capitalism is built on that.
Yeah.
But in order for you to be fulfilled, in order for you to feel that you are succeeding big time and you have a meaningful life, you need to be serving others. So eventually you will come to a point where serving becomes your mission, and what you're doing in your business becomes your mission. And when that happens, your selfishness is going to pay off big time as well. That's the game where you play with both selfishness, and I call it we selfish. So the two paradigms are either we are selfish, cold-blooded capitalist, or we are selfless socialist, right? It doesn't have to be either or, right?
Yeah.
We can be selfish. We can be selfish for us, me, my customers, my family, my community, my country, and my world.
Now, a lot of people don't understand this, and it's a great debate, particularly here in the United States. United States was the pillar of capitalism for so long, and we got really comfortable. But then the world started to open up, and as capitalists and business do, the way you make money is not spend it. So if you can find less expensive resources somewhere else, that makes sense. Well, a lot of Americans are still stuck on this ground. But you say there are like untold, untapped markets around the globe. Can you speak to those a little bit?
Sure. So the labor market all over the world is spread out. Think about the last 30 years of manufacturing economy. The economy was about manufacturing. We were consuming, we were spending more than we receive. Most of the money that we make, it's going into China. Why?
Yeah.
Because China was really good at duplicating, copying, and doing the same thing again and again.
Yeah.
So they had a conformity-based society that was really conditioned for doing the same thing again and again. So they won that game. The manufacturing was their normal thing. If you look forward, what is going to happen is we have to look backward to see this, right? We were agriculturists, we were farming, 55% of America was farmers.
Yep.
And now less than 5% of Americans are farmers. What happened? We automated farming. We came up with machines and mechanics. And then we moved into the conveyor belt, the steam engine, the manufacturing. And then we were automating manufacturing. And now we are reaching a point where we are automating automation. Artificial intelligence is that. So we don't need to depend on China or any other country for manufacturing anymore in the decades to come, because we could have machines do the manufacturing for us.
Yeah.
So in that world, we are becoming a knowledge economy. So what does that mean? In the manufacturing world, what happened was people switched from farming to service industry. 50+ % of Americans are in service industry right now. AI is going to switch that service industry because AI is going to be the customer care from now for the most part. So at that point, humans are evolving into a different level. We are going to be paid for our specialized knowledge. So what does that mean in the whole picture for a consumer, for a regular person? What it means is what we built in the US, we saw it as infrastructure. The infrastructure in Texas that's helping the power system for everybody, or collective as an infrastructure, that's failing. The infrastructure of the US, the physical infrastructure is failing. Now we need to switch into intellectual infrastructure that we built, building this physical infrastructure. What does that mean? There is a knowledge that we have in building this greatest country in the world. And that knowledge is being looked for from people around the world, whether it is knowing English or having some specialized management skill or having some specialized company building skills, whatever skills that you have, people around the world are looking for that specialized skill. That's the setup, the context of what I'm talking about here.
You know, and with that, you talk about these specialized skills because Americans have some skills that they don't even know they have just by being in the environment. But how do you connect yourself with those global customers? Because I travel to Europe, a couple times throughout the decade because I have family there. So I have a different perspective of the world versus the average American. Most Americans are very continental. So where do they begin to look, to test the waters to see, hey, I think I can do X, Y, Z, or they can be like, well, I'm not quite there yet, but I can start the building blocks. So where do they find these opportunities?
So let's start with the basics. Most of Americans know how to speak English, right?
Some of them.
Or Spanish, one of them. So there are, especially if you speak English, people from Taiwan, India, China, and different parts of the Asian countries that they're expanding, they can actually pay you 2 times what a typical worker in a grocery store is getting for learning English from you. People are willing to pay $18 to $25 to learn English from you if you know how to speak in English and then teach somebody English.
Yeah.
Very basic skill. There are websites like vipkid.com, vipkid.com. There are many websites. You could just Google how to teach kids in different parts of the world, teach English to different parts of the world. So that's basic level thing that you could do. Now, the next thing is you could upgrade to the next level and see you have a great voice, right? And you want to be a voice artist for a Taiwanese company, right? So all of a sudden, you have a specialized skill. There are people online looking for those specialized skills, especially with American accent, somebody who speaks American, they are looking for those skills. So you could use online websites like Freelancer, Upwork, Fiverr, and it might sound like, okay, this is not a lot of money, but what happens is if you persevere, if you stay in that particular industry for a long time, I have seen people who make $500,000 to $1 million doing a specialized thing, and they built street credibility online. And they kept on doing it for a long time and built a lot of reviews, and it is helping them go there. Next level, if you have like some special skills in development, customer care, or management skills, there are websites like WFH, which is work from home, WFH.team, where you could actually work from home for different companies in the world. Right? So there are remotewomen.com for women who are looking for employment in remote spaces. It's remotewomen.com. So there are so many places where you could work. But the first thing, Emmett, is for us to have a global mindset. We need to start thinking that, you know what, instead of being fearful about people from other country, and rather than thinking that we are everything and we are the best thing that happened to the world, we American needs to start thinking that, you know what, we have succeeded as a country. Now, how do we capitalize this? We don't want to be a poor person in a rich country.
Yeah, that's true. With that, there's a mindset shift that is required for this. What are some of the things that, in your travels and you're showing people these things, what is that thing that you say, here's one of the way for you to open your mindset to get out of your box? Because, people in the United States are in a box. Like, we don't even think about Canada. And they're English-speaking country. They're pretty much America-like, but you don't hear much about it. So to the average American who may be living in a small or mid-sized city, that mindset is kind of here. What would you suggest to them to open up their worldview?
I can tell you some blunt truths about the world, which is every great country has to move on, and then somebody else is going to show up and become the biggest player. In history, there were times when Greek was the greatest country. There were times when Romans were the greatest country, and then UK became the greatest country, and then US became the greatest country, like the most powerful country in the world. And then the game will move on. Why did we become greatest country in the world? Why did we become the most powerful country in the world? There are many things. The two things that stood out historically, if you look at the last 2,000 years or more of what happened, was one thing was education. Education, real education, not just learning the ABCs and the songs and drawing some pictures and getting some stickers, versus real implementable education. And whichever country had the realest implementable education, that led to the next thing, which is innovation. Coming up with greatest ideas and coming up with a culture, creating a culture where innovation thrives, new ideas thrive. Look at what happened. I'm not going to tell you, the audience, what happened to the US. What happened to us right now is we hang on to the tradition now. We are like, we are the greatest of the nation. Why? I don't know. We are. It doesn't work anymore. We need to wake up and learn the basic things that built us as a country, right? It's like an organization, education and innovation. When we are stagnant and we go back to traditions and say, hey, and go back to superstition and think that we are the greatest country, everybody is trying to take advantage of us, that's not the reality. Like, we caused the 2008 crisis as a collective.
Yeah.
It's not the world that caused it. We caused it. And nothing happened to us. Why? Because we had the currency. We had the reserve currency. So the reality is, whenever a country, which is a third thing for a powerful nation to exist in the world. So what could happen is, if we continue spending like this, for whatever reasons, if we continue spending, capitalizing on the reserve status of our currency. If you guys don't know what reserve currency is, basically, this is a currency that most people hold their money in. Today, it's $1. And if the dollar values start depreciating, people will move out of dollar. Today, most of the trading in oil and gold is done on dollar. And if we devaluate our currency, what is going to happen is everybody else start using other currencies, Chinese yuan, probably, to transact in the world. What happens? Our debt becomes so much more bigger. Why? Because we might need to increase our interest rate. And as we increase our interest rate, we might not have enough money to pay for it. Just like Emmett, you said, we are spending as a family, we are spending what we receive, more than what we receive. Yeah. As a county, we are spending more. As a state, we are spending more. As a country, we are spending more. Now, we are an expenditure as a company. We are not in a company, when I say a country, like a company. As a company, we are spending more than we receive. If you have a small business, if you are consistently spending more than you receive, then there is a problem. At some point, this is going to catch up. So the bottom line is, it's time for us to slap ourselves and wake up and say, what's happening here? It's time for me to be creative, innovative, so that I could excel in this new world order. Let me use what I have, the tradition that I have, the skill that I built, building this great country. Let's use it for helping other people from other countries to grow and capitalize on this knowledge.
And that's one of the things that we did after World War II. Every war that we've been in, we've gone in and helped those people. But the exact thing that you were speaking of is what happened to Germany and why they closed in under Hitler, because their currency was worth nothing. It got devalued. I think it was the Treaty of Versailles, I believe it was.
Yeah.
So I fully understand. But to your point, and this is a good one, most Americans, and they could be making $1 million, they don't have a reserve themselves of $400 for an emergency. I was on the podcast and I heard about someone who was making $700,000 a year. And they needed to buy something. They had to go get a loan for it because they didn't have the reserves, as you were talking about, to do it. So if the general public doesn't have a fundamental fiscal responsibility or understanding of cash flow and reserves, they're not going to hold our legislation accountable because they don't know. But I do understand what you're saying. And through podcasts like this, hopefully people will get it under their grasp. But I want to move on to something else. We've been going through this pandemic and people have been very much isolated, especially those people who may not have family or who don't have family and children and things like that. I think it's been especially hard on them. Where do you think the next wave of entrepreneurs are going to come from? Are they going to come from that? People would just have that time to sit and go, I have nothing else to do, but I'm going to use my mind.
That's certainly a possibility. One thing that I'm good at, one thing that I'm paid for when I'm helping people in 14 different countries is to see the macro trend of what is going to happen to the world. And the last decade, and let me talk about the mindset, and then we would talk about what specific things that we could implement. So from a mindset, from a psychology standpoint, the last decade, almost the entire decade, was about expression. So what do I mean by expression? You get on Twitter and you say whatever you want to say. You go on Facebook and you rant. You go on other places and you express yourself, right? So all the movements, if you look at the most majority of movements that were required, including all of the movements, including the Me Too movement, which is legitimately valuable movement, the Black Lives Matter, and all the movements were about expressing who we are, which was needed for the society at the time. It's beautiful, and I need it to continue as well. And what is happening in the new decade is we are switching from an expression world into a connection world. So why is this happening? Because of the coronavirus, there is this separation of emotional distancing, not just social distancing. You are 6 feet away from each other, so you are emotionally distant. You don't have enough communication, so you lost the communication. So the human brain, human soul is craving for connection. And because of this collective craving all over the world, what is going to happen is this new generation that is growing up, they're like, oh my gosh, what happened? Why did we not connect with each other? And they're going to get deep down into connecting. That could lead into another, so much of reproduction. That could lead into so much of, higher population and higher connection and more bonding between families, within the family, within community, and everybody else. That's the behind the scene thing. And because of what is happening there, anybody who could start a business that relates to this connection environment, building communities, whether they have an existing business or a future business, they are going to thrive. There is going to be a lot of emphasis on technology, and there are going to be a lot of new problems because of the pandemic. So if there is a new problem because of the pandemic, what does that mean for an entrepreneur? If you have a lot of time, Emmett, you would sit down and say, what is this problem doing to the world? And then what could that problem do to the world? And if that happens, what could that lead to? And you bring in 3 levels deep into the problem, and then you solve the third problem that is about to happen, then you are a successful entrepreneur. That's how you play this game.
And that's kind of like one of my principles. How can I serve? There is a problem here. How can I contribute to solving or help ease the pain? Because if you're in business, one of the core principles that you're always taught is, what's the pain point that you can solve? So I understand what you're saying, and I hadn't looked at it that way. Like, what is this pandemic going to birth into the world? What is going to be the outcome from humans? What will they need outside of this? So that is pretty awesome. Now, in this time, you're working with companies, but you're an author. So how are you reaching your audience? I mean, of course, you're on a podcast like this, but are you doing Zoom meetings? Are you doing Google Meetups? Or so what's happening in your world to connect yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So we started completely going virtual from 2016. So we were using Zoom from late 2015 when nobody Zoom, what is that?
Yeah,
right?
I remember that too.
So we were completely virtual. We were doing virtual events before, virtual events with a lot of people live in Zoom, engaging people as if they are really physically there. That's the way we started helping people in different countries. So for us, it is Zoom. We use Zoom, and we also use a software called Asana, ASANA, which is a pretty good tool, and it's free for individuals and small companies. You could use that for communicating with each other. And other tools like Slack are pretty good. Teams are pretty good. Slack is a way to communicate with each other. And we use a lot of Facebook groups, WhatsApp group to engage people with each other. So we use all those things as tools to communicate with each other. But the bottom line is, Emmett, we need to be humans again. It's time for us to be back to humans, because in a world of automation, we could be machines, because that was a trend. Everything was becoming a machine.
Yeah.
Remember the time, I don't know, Discover, I think it's TD Bank. TD Bank announced that we have real humans talking to you when you call customer care.
Yeah.
Right? So that's going to happen more and more, right? We are looking for human connection, and the more human and authentic you could be, the more people will resonate with you in this connection world.
I want to ask you about finances. And what I mean by this is, I just realized, or it just came to my mind the other day, we did a DoorDash for my wife and I. And I noticed something. I'm like, we DoorDash for 2 people, and it's always about $50 to $60. And it's not like we order anything, elegant or anything massive. We just order 2 little meals, and it's $50. So I'm like, wait a minute. I'm old enough to remember where I could take a family of 4 out to dinner for like $25. I'm like, how is this going to play out in the future? Because it seems like we've been hit with an inflation that nobody saw coming, and everybody's just okay with it. So how do you think that's going to affect our economies, particularly in the United States? And I don't know if it's happening around the world as well, if everything's been inflated due to COVID. You think that's going to have some detrimental effects on us?
Yeah. You want the honest answer here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we haven't started the inflation game yet. So what does that mean? So what does that it is happening all over the world as well. So what happened post World War II is that the prices for things went up so much. Inflation became so much high because currencies devaluated. And hang in there, guys, if you're listening to this, and there is a good end of the story, okay? So, but I wanted to be blunt and totally honest about this because we need to hear this. So what happened at the time was most of the currencies depreciated from 30% to some of them 50%. Serious depreciation of the currency. So which means inflation was 50 to 100%, depending upon where they were. Today, we are in deflation. Right? That's why economy went down. So there are two basic principles that we need to understand. When economy goes up, there is an economic growth and economic stagnancy. That's one model that we talk about. Another one is inflation versus deflation. So deflation is like the prices are going down. Inflation is prices are going up, for simple terms. Economy going up, it's one thing. When the economy goes up, what we do is we reduce the interest rate so that, or we increase interest rate so that we control the economy and then we control the inflation.
Yeah.
Today, what is happening is economy is going down and the rates are down too.
Yes, that's bizarre.
Right. So seriously, pay attention to this, right? So the economy is going down. So it's stagnant. Okay. And then the rates are going down at the same time. So right now, it's like this. Now, economy is down, and then we are about to start to see inflation. So this is called stagflation. So the economy is stagnant, and there is an inflation at the same time. This is a point where I don't want to put metaphor that are too strong, but it's something like a patient who has cancer has a heart attack, right?
Oh.
But because what happens is now there's nothing that governments can do because they put the interest rate to the lowest. Yeah. So what that means is now there needs to be a huge innovation in finance that's going to take care of us. And that's the time we are printing more money. Of course, many people are struggling for money. We must print money and give money to people so we could survive. At the same time, we need massive innovation, the Teslas and the Apples and new companies who could come up with real value to this economy rather than a bunch of people just consuming money and consuming everything. Think about it. Like we are distributing all this money to people. That's amazing. We should continue doing that. While doing that, there is nothing contributed to the economy. So there needs to be an investment into the new infrastructure. If you want to go that way, the new infrastructure of the world is artificial intelligence. This is a term that we came up with in our research in 14 countries. The country that has the highest infrastructure, the transportation, the buildings, the bridges, everything won the game in 20th century. This century, the next 2-3 decades, is about having the infrastructure of artificial intelligence. Who is doing farming using artificial intelligence? Who is doing customer care using artificial intelligence? So this country as a whole need to invest into artificial intelligence so that this money that is spent across the board is actually turning into a significant value that American can become an exporter of artificial intelligence. That's the way out for us.
The only rebuttal I have to that is if you create artificial intelligence, right? Or you have automation, you have artificial intelligence that you can share. That is not going to be a item for the public. That's going to be a little group of people who will be captive in that. We're going to be in the same situation because now most of this country, this is where the wealth was built on this country, was built on physical labor. So we can go back to, and I was explaining this to someone else. They were talking about immigration. I was like, do you know that the only reason they opened up immigration to the United States so heavily right at 1900 was because they ended slavery and they didn't have free slavery. And they treated those people really poorly. If you read, I think it's Howard Zinn's The People's History of the United States, you get to really see what the economic drivers have done from both perspectives that way. So those people, how do you bring forth an entire nation so that everyone could benefit? Because the only way I really see it is if we go to some democratic socialism.
Okay, this
is getting good, isn't it?
This is good. So here is the thing. Nobody has thought about this, first of all, right? In a sense that 20 years from now, 30 years from now, who's going to pay taxes? Today, the taxes are paid by humans who are working in service industries, and those service industries are going to be taken over by AI. So who's going to pay for the taxes? And if you don't invest in AI as a country, what's going to happen is China is investing $35 billion as a government, and many Chinese companies are investing in AI. So somebody else is going to be the world leader at that point. Right. So this is a play here, right? Now, here is a solution. I can elaborate on it, but I'll give you the simple solution. The simple solution is we tax the machines.
Oh, you got it. I think I have it. So a portion of the machine's production is taxable, meaning the revenue generated by said machine has to go to whatever powers that be. So if a machine produces $50,000 worth of goods a month, $10,000 has to go to the government. Yeah,
that has to be supported. So at that point, there are some cities in Canada where they tried negative taxation, and I work for U.S. Air Force in Kuwait. Kuwait has negative taxation. What does that mean? The Kuwait government has so much money coming in from oil, they're actually giving each citizen a certain amount of money. They're not taxing, they're actually giving a certain amount of money to the citizens as negative taxation, which means they are getting paid every month. So at that point, okay, I am completely open-minded with Republican and Democratic ideas. I'm not a Republican or Democratic. I'm a humanist. I just want humans to be okay. So here is the thing. If machines are working for us 80% of the time globally, and then America as a country still stay as the intellectual capital of the world by exporting AI to the world, and we get a royalty from there, and the royalty of everything that machine is producing is patented, and if we use that patent to support the people here in the US to get basic healthcare, get the basic infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, in order for them to survive. And at that point, I don't want to call it universal basic income or democratic socialistic income. I want to call it royalty. I wrote a book one time. And because of that book, I'm getting a royalty every month, right? So Americans wrote one code that created an AI. And we can, as a species, because of our innovation, because of our collective energy, we created something that Amazon is using, that Apple is using, Tesla is using. We tax them reasonably so that we get a portion for our survival as a society. I don't see any other way out for us.
You know, I do like that. And I got this one question. Why didn't you just run for president, my man?
I was not born in the U.S., so I actually cannot run for president.
I know that. But, you know, you could have just said, hey, Emmett, I'm going to put you up as the front man. You run for president, and you just put me on your council, and we'll be good to go. And I'll be like, all right, let's go. I'm like, no, but that's, you know, because some of what you're talking about is, I can't forget, his name just escaped me. He was talking about the universal basic income for the United States. Chang?
With the math, make America think again.
Yeah.
You know, I don't remember his name. Yeah.
And but you know, I'm going to say what the problem with the basic American is. We're comfortable, and we've been comfortable a long time. And we're going to, you know, COVID is actually, I see the positives in COVID because it's made people introspective. It's made them get back to being a basic human. It's like we went into a timeout. I know for myself, I realize the things that I need for my sanity. But I've been busier than ever with my day job since this happened. I mean, busy. Flying about the country just because I'm a trainer. But additionally, when I'm home, there's like weeks where I can't go out. I do everything from Zoom. I gained 15 pounds. So I said, I have to invest in myself and my family somehow, some way. So what did we do? We started a woodworking business. Laser cutting, CNC, and people are like, how did you do that? Invest in yourself. Instead of buying Air Jordans, go buy a book that teaches you how to do something. Or if you see something like, oh, that looks pretty cool, instead of buying it, figure out how you can produce it. I mean, that's some of the things that we've done. And I think that's some of the things that we as industrialized people who have been here for more than 100 years need to adopt, which is mindset. How do you think people can alter their mindset? And let me put it to you like this. Think about someone in the middle of Nebraska who doesn't have a lot of cultural exposure, doesn't have a great deal of exposure to diversity, but they need to adapt to a global mindset.
First of all, I wanted to acknowledge this thing to anybody who's extreme, one side or another side, and they are in a certain particular level. I wanted to acknowledge America has good people. 99% of Americans are excellent people, because I have traveled, although I was in this country for around 14 years now, I have been to around 30 states, and I actually lived there. I mean, I stayed in different places, and I traveled. I went to countryside, and I went to met people one-on-one and spoke to them with an accent, obviously, but they follow me kind of, So I understand this country is built with amazing people. There might be some division and confusion in the shallow level. In a deeper level, we are all amazing people, right? The blue collar and the white collar people, all of us are amazing people. So I wanted to acknowledge that. That being said, the thing is that we need to start seeing each other with an original mindset. We need to take the glasses off of our mindset, the American mindset, and we need to start seeing all the people, regardless of religion, regardless of culture, as humans. So let me give you an example. This is a confirmation bias. So most of the terrorists in the world are Muslims. Most of the people who are terrorists in the world are Muslims. Does that mean most Muslims are terrorists? No. So 99, so there might be, let's say 10,000 terrorists all over the world, or more than that, 100,000 terrorists all over the world. Still, one in probably 10,000 is a terrorist. So does that, so what happens is, since we are seeing this 9/11 and the ISIS and other people, they're like, oh, they're all Muslims, so they must be the problem. What happens is we lost the imagination already. We lost the game already as a collective. So we need to start seeing evil for evil and good for good, and Republicans for Republicans and Democrats for Democrats. And I read recently there was a stat where about 70+% of Republicans and about 70% of Democrats wish that other people would die. That was fascinating, right? If that's the case, if you look at a Mexican or somebody from somewhere else, you'll be like, what else would you think, right? Or somebody from Arab countries. So we need to start seeing each other as God's children, plain and simple, and start reading books. One option. Start traveling. If you get a chance to go outside of country, travel. Go to other states, for example. Go to New York, visit California. Go to South American country if you could afford it, or figure out a way to find money for that. Go to Europe. Go travel. When you travel to different countries, oh my gosh, world operated like this. that will open up. If you don't have budget for it right now, read books about culture, read Tolstoy or Shakespeare or something else, something that is simple, other than just reading, like listening to MSNBC or Breitbart, right? Let's open up something. And if this is difficult, then if I'm really a religious follower of MSNBC, go read Breitbart and see what they say there. And if you're a Breitbart person, go to MSNBC and read what they say there. At least let's have a spectrum of perspective so our mind is open, start to open, and it will continue opening because we are fundamentally good people.
Well said. And I want to say that it goes right into what I end the show with every time. But this has been an awesome conversation. I want to invite you back in a couple of months. And I want to thank you for being a guest on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know what it is. We talked about it, but if you've listened to the show, you know I've iterated the very same words. We are human beings. Say it with me again. Human beings. We are people under the sun, which gives us a color. Because if not, we'd be these see-through things just like amoeba or anything else. That gives us our hue. We are made by the Creator in the image of man. Here's where all the problems that we have been talking about on this show crop up. It's the being part. You think your being and my being are separate, but we are having very similar experiences. We're just doing them from different perspectives. So what I need you to be is a human being, their best. That all starts with love. Starts with love of yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, you cannot love someone else. So the next time you get out the shower, drop your towel, be as naked as a jaybird, because that is the God body you came to this planet with. And I want you to get close to the mirror. I want you to examine yourself. Examine your man boobs if you got them, your chicken wing flapping, your back fat, whatever, your double chin, the acne on your face. I'm 50-something years old. I still get zits. That is you. I need you to fall in love with the reflection. I need you to start with the reflection. Accept what is in the mirror because that is you. We cannot make it. And I need you to understand that when you see someone else out in public that reminds you of your reflection, that is a human being, treat them with love, honor, and respect that you gave the person in the mirror. Till next time, love you all. Peace.